Well, with that being said, so you went from Lucky Chicken Games in 2002 to 2003. Then you went to what I think is one of the coolest companies in the world ever, Oddworld Inhabitants.
I did.
In 2004, and actually worked on that beautiful, beautiful game, Stranger's Wrath.
Oh, I loved it.
Dude, that game, I mean, Oddworld, the first one, got my attention. The graphics, how weird it was, and like the gameplay, I was in it.
Weird's a good word. Yeah.
Weird, like because it wasn't like a normal game,
right.
you know. It's like weird, like for weirdos like me. But Stranger's Wrath was, I mean, that just you guys took a game and just expanded it and made it something I think bigger than I could ever imagine it could be. So please tell me your experience with that and how, like, you getting your hands on that and being able to design. What were you designing levels at that point?
We had, so we only had 6 designers. And so designers did a little bit of everything there. So we would own entire pieces of content. So when I got there, it had been in development for a while, and so they're like, "Hey, we have another guy, so we can add some, give in some of the stuff we have, add some new stuff, and that kind of thing." And so one of the things they did though is they're like, "We're going to add an entirely new boss and level, and here you go. What do you want to do?
How about it?
What do you want to do?" Right? And I'm like, I'm not responsible enough for this power.
Don't hand me that.
So the nice thing was there was a lot of the architecture was already there. There was a space that had been built as a transition space, and so I didn't have to think entirely for myself, right? There was some boundaries, and design is all about working within constraints, right? Yeah. And so for this, while I had freedom, I could have done anything that I wanted with the space. I used it as kind of the starting point to get my thoughts in line, and kind of think about what do I want here. But man, I kind of went off the rails with it, and I'm going to come up with this boss battle for a lady named Joe Mama.
Dude, it was so awesome. It was so awesome. Have you guys seen this?
No.
Dude,
I've never
you have to
played it, no.
Google this. Google Oddworld Joe Mama, dude. It was awesome. The game, that level alone, I remember my friends, because I had a couple friends that were fanatics on the first one. Mm-hmm. I mean, even wore the memorabilia, like the shirts and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, where do you even buy that? Back then, that was back then, before the internet was popping like it is now. And again, we're talking about around the 2003 era. Mm-hmm. This game comes out and they couldn't shut up about it. And I'm always hanging out with my friends, just watching them play. But I started playing just to help them get to this, because everybody knew there was this new
that you
level.
had to beat Joe Mama.
Well, everybody, we were all talking about it, that there was this level where the new boss is called Joe Mama, and we were like, no way. So now I'm sitting next to the guy.
That is the boss in every household.
Dude, shout out to my homies out there. You guys know who you are. They were playing that game. Yeah. I'm sitting next to him now. Yeah. We made it. No, but please tell me what where.
I honestly don't remember what made me think of that, specifically, other than I was just trying to, the vibe there is very cool, right? Yeah. It's a very, there's a lot of, innuendo and, kind of nods to things and stuff like that. And so it was just something that sounded funny to me, right? So, and I remember, though, when I first started thinking about it, it was kind of a joke in my mind, right? And I remember I threw it out in a meeting, and everybody kind of laughed. And then I had some other ideas because we were having some brainstorming sessions, and I didn't know these guys. So I'm like, how do you like this?
Just kind of
just pushing it toward them a little bit. But then after a few meetings, it was kind of like, that was the one that cemented in my head better, and I kind of got my head wrapped around this lady that has unlimited sons, right? Yeah. So these guys are coming out of the woodwork. They keep spawning. Yeah. They're protecting her, and so it's like you're trying to get to her, and they're trying to stop you. And
why didn't I play this?
I don't know. We were talking about Oddworld earlier. You were like, I was actually having to tell him, explain to him. He was like, wait, he worked at Oddworld Inhabitants? He was like, I thought that was a game. I was like, well, no, listen. Sit him down and actually explain it to him.
This sounds like the greatest thing I've ever heard.
Dude, but imagine being able to walk away from that game and tell your friends,
I beat your mama.
I beat your mama. This is the genius that came up with that, dude. Think about that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you had this amazing opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
It was really well received by us, the fans. And that actually, your stay there lasted until 2005. In 2005, you also somehow ended up at Electronic Arts.
I did.
EA.
Yeah. So the thing that was not great about Oddworld was we actually ended up shutting that studio down after Stranger's Wrath. You mentioned that people loved it.
Yeah.
Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
Everybody that played it loved it. It was highly rated, users and Metacritic. But it wasn't marketed well.
The right way.
Yeah, and
that's why
so
Mike
no one
never
knew.
played it.
Yeah,
Right.
That's why
And
Mike never played
There's
it.
actually a specific reason for that. When we signed on with Electronic Arts to publish it, because we basically the way Oddworld would work is we would ship something and use the money off of that to start developing the next thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we would partner with different developers, and this was all kind of before my time, right?
Yeah.
Like I was there, as this stuff had happened, but when this one didn't sell, there wasn't the money there to do that. But the reason for the marketing part was they wanted a PS2 port of the game. And we were building it for the Xbox, which at the time, the hardware was vastly superior to the PS2 as a later console, right? And we were pushing it to its limits. And we told them, this isn't going to work. Like, it's just not a way to, it can't handle it, right? So they hired a couple of companies to do the work as part of the deal, and then they couldn't do it. And so they pulled the marketing money from it. So, so that was rough. Like seeing this game that everybody loved and no one knew about. That's tough.